Sika, a story of self-worth and dignity. The vibrant dust of the marketplace in Kumasi didn't settle for anyone, but it seemed to part for Sika. Clad in wax-print fabrics of deep indigo and gold, she moved with the grace of a woman who knew exactly where her feet were planted. In the heart of the city, Sika was a master of Adinkra cloth. While her talent was undeniable, it was her presence that drew the most attention. Sika was a woman of striking beauty. Her skin was the deep, rich hue of polished ebony, and she possessed a natural elegance that made even the simplest wrap look like a queen's attire. Many men in the market didn't see the artisan. They saw only the curve of her waist and the strength in her stride. They lusted after her openly, their eyes following her with a hunger that she refused to feed. On the other side, a group of women often whispered as she passed. "Look at her," they would hiss behind raised hands. "She walks as if she owns the clouds. Who does she think she is, refusing the drinks and the gifts of the big men? It is nothing but pride." But Sika knew the difference between pride and self-sanctity. She wasn't looking down on others, she was simply looking up at her own standards. One evening, during the heat of the festival season, a man named Kwame, a wealthy trader known more for his arrogance than his honesty, approached her shop. He was flushed with palm wine and surrounded by a boisterous entourage. "Sika," Kwame called out, leaning heavily against her display table, his eyes wandering disrespectfully. "I have seen you refuse the others, but I am Kwame. I can give you a life where you never have to touch a dyed pot again. Come, leave this shop and spend the night at the lodge with us." The marketplace went quiet. The whispering women leaned in, expecting her to either succumb to his wealth or shrink away. Sika didn't blink. She stopped her work and looked Kwame directly in the eye. "Kwame, your money can buy many things, land, cattle, and even silence. But it cannot buy a seat at my table, and it certainly cannot buy my company. My body is the temple of my spirit, not a trophy for a man who has lost his way to wine." Kwame's face reddened. He looked around, hoping for a laugh from his friends, but Sika's steady, unyielding dignity made his power look like a childish tantrum. He slunk away into the shadows, his gold chains clinking hollowly. Over time, the whispers changed. The young girls of the village began to watch how Sika handled herself. They saw that she was prosperous, loved, and, most importantly, at peace. The young girls started coming to her shop, not just to learn to dye cloth, but to ask how to say no without fear. Even the married women who had once whispered prideful began to seek her out. She later got married to a respectable and prosperous man. They saw the deep respect Adam, her husband, had for her, and realized that by valuing herself, Sika had taught the entire village how a woman deserved to be treated. Sika became the unofficial matriarch of the district. She lived a long, abundant life, surrounded by a husband who cherished her until his final breath, and a community of women who finally understood her secret. A woman's value is not a price tag set by men, but a crown she places on her own head. Sika's story teaches us that self-worth is not arrogance. A woman who sets boundaries is not proud, she is principled. Respect begins the moment you decide what you will no longer tolerate. When you honor yourself, you silently instruct the world on how to treat you. Sika did not shout. She did not fight. She simply stood firm in who she was. And in doing so, she changed the thinking of an entire community. Let this remind you that your standards may make others uncomfortable at first, but in time, they will either rise to meet them or fall away. Choose peace over approval. Choose dignity over acceptance. Your crown fits you for a reason, wear it boldly. If Sika's courage inspired you today, please listen, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Let's spread stories that empower, motivate, and remind every woman of her strength, worth, and voice.